Hello and welcome to Akku's Corner. Hello and welcome to my channel. Today at the Dauphine we had a crash, and the result of this crash was that the team captain of Team Ineos, Froome, will not be able to ride in this year's Tour de France. He fractured his femur quite badly actually, his team manager Brailsford said, and there is absolutely no chance that he will be able to ride the Tour de France next month. He said that while doing the recon for the time trial stage we had today, he was at the bottom of the descent, and while riding at 60 kilometers per hour, he took his hands off his bars to blow his nose, and while he did that, he lost control over his front wheel and crashed into a wall, broke his femur, and yeah, that was it. So what does that mean for the Tour de France? Well, first of all, for Froome it means that he won't be able to try to attempt a record equaling 5th victory at the Tour de France. But for Team Ineos it also means that they lost their best chance of winning this bike race, because even though they still have riders like Geraint Thomas and Egan Bernal, they lost their captain, their best climber. I don't think it will change too much for the rest of the peloton actually, because let's be honest, Team Ineos still have Kwiatkowski, Wout Poels, they still have Luke Rowe, they still have a lot of riders for the train, they have Kelly Descent. All those guys will still be able to push some huge gears up the mountains for Thomas and Bernal. The only question is if those two can finish it off. And in the case of Bernal, he's not as good as a time trialer as Froome is. Yes, this year's Tour de France doesn't have as much time trial kilometers as, let's say, the Giro this year, but still, Bernal will probably lose time on some opponents during those stages. But yeah, Team Ineos quite shocked, Brailsford said, because, well, Froome was their best option for winning the Tour de France. Yes, last year we had Geraint Thomas take the victory, but I think he also benefited from having a rider like Froome in his team. We've seen it this year at the Giro d'Italia where Carapaz won. He had Landa in his team and Landa was there to support him, and now one of the strongest riders of the race will not start. It shouldn't change the dynamic of Team Sky. It shouldn't change the way how they will tackle this race, how they approach each stage of the tour, because like I said, the train is still intact. The train will still work the same way it usually does. Just keep a high tempo so not a lot of riders can even attack, and then have their captain or their one or two riders be there in the final kilometers and attack then. It is actually, let's be honest here, it is quite boring to watch that. The Tour de France has become quite boring because of that. It is a successful tactic, but because Ineos, they have so much money, they can attract so many great riders. They were able to, well, to achieve this style of racing that made it impossible for attackers, for the pure climbers, to get away, because the pace is so high. In the past years we had guys like Kirienka just slaving away in the mountains and pushing such a high tempo that no one was able to accelerate. They were happy to just hang on, and then in the final 2 or 3 kilometers we've seen an attack from Froome or from Geraint Thomas, and they finished it off. And that in particular won't change because of the crash of Froome. But I think it will be harder because, well, Chris Froome is just, let's be honest, he is a better rider than Geraint Thomas. He is a better rider for now than Bernal. We'll have to see how that will change over the next 1 or 2 years. But for the moment, Chris Froome was their guy. He was still the best GC rider they had. And the results of Team Sky this season so far were not exceptional. We've seen it. They put all their eggs in the tour basket and now their captain is injured. So that is quite a lot of money down the drain, basically. They focus on one race, especially Chris Froome this year. He showed absolutely nothing over the past few months. He was trying to be in top shape just for this one race of the season. And now this happens, he can't ride that one race. He was preparing for basically the last 6-7 months or even more after last year's World Tour, basically. You could say he started his preparation for this one race. So maybe even 10 months ago he started the preparation, and now he won't be able to do well in that one particular event. While other teams, they try to balance it out. They have some sprinters, some guys for cobbles, some guys for the hilly classics, but Team Ineos is focused on Grand Tour riding. They are focused on winning the general classification in the 3-week tours. And first we had the crash of Egan Bernal, training crash also. Then he couldn't ride the Giro d'Italia. They had to rely on Sivakov, who did actually quite well, but finishing 9th is not what you expect to be the best rider at Team Ineos or former Team Sky in a Grand Tour. And now at the Tour de France, they'll again lose their probably best rider. So that is already 2 out of 3 of the Grand Tours where they, even before it started, lost their best riders. And that makes it questionable if you should really approach the season that way. They have so much money, they could build a very balanced squad. If we take a look at this year, Bora Hansgrohe or the Koenig Quickstep, they have a very balanced roster. They have riders for multiple kind of stages, multiple kinds of races. They can do well on different terrains. But then there are teams like Astana or like Team Ineos or Movistar for that instance, who are mostly climbing squads and they almost entirely focus on the Grand Tours. This year with Astana we've seen that they also tackle the smaller stage races with a lot of great riders, had a lot of success in them, especially in the smaller races in Spain in February and March. They dominated them because they sent some of their best riders to those races, while Sky took a very different approach on our Team Ineos. They are, well, their captains are just preparing for that one Grand Tour a year, and the other 11 months of the season their results are quite lackluster because they want to be in shape for that one race. And if then something happens to the rider, like a crash, and a crash can always happen in cycling, I don't wish that to anybody, but it can always happen. And now for the second time in a row for this team, it did happen. If you look in the past, Geraint Thomas or even Richie Porte before that often crashed during or shortly before big goals of the season. Then that is a lot of money that is quite honestly wasted because these riders don't perform the rest of the year, and if then something happens, that is even more shocking for the team, for the sponsors. But yeah, the rest of the race, how will this affect the other riders? I've said that the train will still be working, so I don't think that most of the other captains will get an advantage because Chris Froome is not there. they will still have to fight against Poles, Kwiatkowski, Elizondo and co. They will still have to push or follow better. They will still have to follow the train, and they won't be able to attack. They won't be able to put in gaps. They just have to hope that the two captains, Bernal and Thomas, won't be as strong as Chris Froome, and that in that way they can beat him. But for the most part of the stage race, I don't think it will be very different for the other teams. Team Sky or Team Ineos, I'm still calling them Team Sky most of the time, I'm sorry for that. But yeah, it's an old habit. I also call De Koning most of the time Quickstep, and I also call Groupama a lot of time FDJ still. But yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, it will be a very interesting Tour de France. Very interesting, especially for Brailsford team, because they lost the best rider. And yeah, let me know what you think, if this will affect other teams more. Like I said, I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong. My track record when it comes to predicting such stuff is not very good. For example, I'm in a fantasy league and I'm dead last because the riders I picked for this season, they just didn't perform or were injured. I picked riders like, for instance, Aru or Benoit, and they crashed, so didn't get a lot of points. So yeah, my track record is not the best. If you think you have more insight than me, let me know in the comments. If you liked this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and well, just like Chris Froome and the Tour de France, I'm out.